further with Tahani Mustafa, a Palestine analyst with the International Crisis Group, and she joins us from Amman in Jordan. Tahani, thanks for speaking to us as always. And I'd like to pick up on what our reporter there was saying about this growing dissent within the ranks, quite literally, in Israel. How much pressure is that going to put on Benjamin Netanyahu and his government's decision-making going forward, not just with talks to get the hostages back, but overall the war in Gaza?
Well, there definitely has been divisions in the ranks. We've seen that in the last 18 months and especially in the last few weeks. We're also seeing public pressure mounting. But this isn't really about, again, ending this war in Gaza. It's more about getting the hostages released, which, there are still many indications that many Israelis still support the continued onslaught in Gaza. And as long as there is that sentiment, public sentiment, then it's very unlikely that we're going to see any significant pressure to really rein Israel's campaign in. Israel will keep offering these sort of half-hearted measures in terms of trying to pursue negotiations where it thinks its military campaign has proved ineffective, where it feels like the pressure is getting a bit too much on the political establishment to try and secure the release of these hostages. But if we're talking about seriously ending the onslaught on Gaza, then that's something else entirely. And there doesn't seem to be much in the way of domestic pressure calling for that, nor are we actually seeing that on the international stage as well from Israel's supporters and the fact that it has the backing of the most powerful state in the world right now.
As much as Israel may have some pressure to bring the hostages back, as you say, not so much pressure to change the lives of Palestinians in Gaza, does Hamas face any of that pressure as well? It does control Gaza. Is there a sense that people there are also saying this needs to end, the killings need to end, we need to bring some sort of solution to all of that? Would Hamas also be feeling something like that?
Absolutely, and Hamas has definitely been feeling that. It's been feeling that from regional states that have been pushing it into conditions that would have been at least 6 months ago completely unacceptable to the movement. We've seen Hamas be flexible in the way of what it said it wouldn't accept, and what we've actually seen it, put forward on the negotiating table, and then be willing to negotiate and work out and actually implement on the ground. And we're definitely seeing that pressure domestically within the context of Gaza from Gazans themselves. That part of that has been the reason why Hamas entered into what were, incredibly shaky conditions during the first initial ceasefire agreement in January of this year. Part of that was because of the significant humanitarian toll that was taking on Gazans, the pressure that Hamas was feeling because of that. And now we've also seen in the last few weeks demonstrations openly calling for an end to this onslaught. We've kind of seen that translate in some of Hamas's own policies, the way that the movement is now rethinking and is significantly deterred against armed resistance. The fact that the movement has been openly calling through numerous forums now, for the relinquishing of its governance in Gaza, relinquishing power. It's no longer even talking about, being part of the PLO, which was a huge stumbling block in reconciliation agreements with Fatah. What it really wants is to see an end to this onslaught, and a large part of that is because of its increasing unpopularity now, not just in Gaza, but also the West Bank, where it's also seeing a waning of its own domestic support that in at least the first few months shot up by 70%. Now those numbers are dwindling.
Which would also please Israel in some way, because one of their red lines for a post-war Gaza is that Hamas is not in charge. If Hamas doesn't control Gaza, who else could fill that gap? Or would you need a guarantor state or states to be able to do that?
Well, there have been numerous initiatives put in place to ensure that it's not going to be Hamas. There have been numerous guarantees, including from Egypt itself, that has managed to get a guarantee from Hamas that it will not look to control Gaza when this is over. This isn't really an issue as to who's going to control Gaza. As I said, there are numerous plans in place, whether that's a technocratic administration that will be in control, full of independent technocrats, or reinstating the Palestinian Authority. The issue really is the fact that Israel doesn't want to see any reconstruction process in Gaza. I think it's become very clear now, and especially since Israel has resumed its open warfare on Gaza in the last month, that really what we're seeing is Israel's long-standing plans to annex the Strip, make sure that it's completely unlivable for Palestinian inhabitants there, to guarantee that there's no permanency of Palestinian presence in the Strip, even if that means not necessarily forced displacement, but maybe even indirect forms of displacement through the creation of these sort of safe zones, where we're starting to see even in those so-called security zones, Israel is starting to clear out pockets of Palestinians in Gaza. So I think it's abundantly clear that this isn't really about whether Hamas is a non-starter or not. Palestinians and regional states and the international community have already guaranteed that Hamas will play no part in any kind of post-war phase that we will see. The problem really is the fact that Israel has rebuffed every attempt to even reach a stage where we can start thinking about a post-war.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, as always, for your analysis. Tahani Mustafa there in Amman in Jordan.